Pottery with Mr. Reifel. We're going to do some simple pendants or reliefs using a template, or not a template, excuse me, a stencil. I'm going to form basically out of my ball of clay a square. First, I'm going to roll it. I've already wedged my clay. It's all ready to go for the students. Again, I'm just going to kind of press this till I start to form a square. Some different methods you can use. You can tap it on the side. Just got to be patient with the kids because sometimes they go over excessive with it. And you can press it down with your thumb. You don't really need to roll these out with a rolling pin, although you could. I do have some rolling pins that I can actually press texture in with. But I'm going to use these little stencils that I have, or not stencils, little wood press patterns. And I'm going to make, let's find something I haven't done yet. I'm going to make a pattern into my clay that is interesting just by repeating my shape into this. I can get an interesting form developing. Now this triangle is a little more difficult since I was working with a square. So I think I'm going to change this up just a little bit and use something else with it. I can also stretch this out, see how the form changes just a little bit. I can cut away any of the areas that I don't need or want. Maybe I want to cut away just by taking my needle here and taking away this excess clay, because this will be a little too heavy for a pendant as it is, because I've left this kind of thick. I don't want to go too thin. If I go too thin, then I have to worry about the possibility of it breaking. Again, I can shape this more to make it more interesting. I can go back into this with that same pattern and press into it. And again, do some more shaping. This gives me just a little different form than what I had when I did my squares earlier. Again, earlier I took my needle. I poked a hole all the way through this because I'm going to make this a pendant that you can wear, a medallion you can wear. As this gets a little firmer, a little more leather hard, then I can smooth this out using maybe a wet sponge or whatever and take out any of the imperfections that I don't like. But I'm going to get my basic shape here first. I can add clay to this if I want to. These are some of the other ones I already made earlier today. I'm going to be doing this with my kindergartners. These are some previous ones I've made with kindergarten. Just gives them something nice to take home. It has texture to it. Now this one's dirty because I've used it, or one of my students have used it, I'm not certain, and pressed this into the clay to try and get a texture onto their own piece of art. It's a nice symmetrical piece here. So again, I'm going to stick with this rectangular or this square form right now, so it stays more uniformed. Oh, it wasn't the one that I had. I wanted this side. I want the circular form. I'm going to repeat that. Although I messed up. That's okay. I can make something a little more interesting, maybe. A little more movement to it than what I wanted. That's okay. Grab me another piece of clay here. Maybe a little larger one this time. Make sure I can get all the surface covered, and then I can cut the excess off. Again, I'm going to plan on doing this with my kindergarten class this next week, as far as with texture and relating it to Larry, the line that we've been doing. He's a friend of mine, you know. What's important is I rotate this. This is a rotated pattern. order to create the imagery that I want. And then I get that circular design. I can leave some of this to create from the outside to make my little hook on my medallion. I'm going to cut off whatever I don't need. Just using my needle. And then I can smooth that out, like I said, later or now. The thickness of that right now, so I'm going to leave that alone. And I'm going to create my hole up here. Just taking the back end of my needle handle. Shape this a little bit more just by squeezing and pinching. Similar techniques of a pinch pot. I could stretch this out more. I could deform this just a little, or make this a little more abstracted a little bit by elongating it. I could shape it where it's more rounded like that, more like a star. I mean, a little more depth to it. Just depends. Or I can just leave it flat. It's probably safer in a flat form as far as for the drying process. But there you have it. Another medallion. I think this will be simple enough for my kindergartners. The biggest challenge I face is the nonstop talking that goes on with my little friends. I hope they'll be quiet and good listeners today. Not at least they can see my video and get the idea of what we're trying to do here as far as creating form. This becomes much more 3D, even though it has a flat relief surface. It's much more 3D than a drawing. And we've been discussing 3D in class lately, and I'm hoping they're getting that concept. Okay, well, say goodbye today and see you again another day. Thank you all.